Hello folks, Anahita Rao, here to speak about the eclipses that are coming up. We have 2 eclipses to end this year, and the eclipse axis is now taking place in the signs where the nodes are the strongest, which is Taurus and Scorpio. So we can continue to expect unpredictable and fated events that will eventually lead to a positive and I think much needed transformation. So let's start with the November's lunar eclipse. So we have a lunar eclipse taking place in Taurus on November the 19th at approximately 9 a.m. UTC in the nakshatra of Krittika at 3 degrees. Rahu will cause this eclipse hovering close by at around 7 degrees in Krittika. The moon here, of course, is in its exact exaltation state in the sign of Taurus at 3 degrees, and thus will be strong. And of course, it's a full moon. The moon is changeable, as we all know, and it reflects how the human mind tends to turn and to churn on a moment-by-moment basis. The strong moon in proximity to Rahu could cause you to be very sensitive to your environment. Your emotions could run high with strong reactions, and some reactions could also perhaps be out of character. This can be in you, and this can also, you can witness this with other people. On the other hand, you could also see things from a very unusual perspective and come up with solutions to ongoing problems at this time. And there could be a culmination of matters that came up or that were discussed at that last eclipse we had in Taurus on June the 10th of this year. And there could be, as I said, a connection to that June 10th eclipse. So matters could resurface. It could also be that whatever you started around that time, you could see some positive results and some growth in that area. Some kind of culmination, because we're talking about a full moon here. Now, Jupiter will be aspecting from Capricorn, and of course it's at that very end of Capricorn. It's about to leave and move to Aquarius, so this connection is auspicious, right? It's as if it's giving its sort of last blessing to that, to where the eclipse is taking place in Taurus. And of course Jupiter is direct as well, so we like that. Now, Jupiter on its way out and aspecting is a good omen for arriving at a favorable outcome. And this depends on where Taurus falls in your chart, what it signifies, where it's placed, whether there are planets there, especially in the later degrees of Taurus. Taurus and Libra are Venus's signs, and both contain planets when this eclipse is taking place. So relationships will of course feature highly at this time. Venus is the dispositor here, and it's not getting any malefic influences. Being in Sagittarius, it may in fact indicate some travel coming up. There could be some good news also, and surprises too in this regard, because at this moment Venus is in exact trine to Uranus. Now, with Mars aspecting Uranus as well, there could be some risk-taking involved, maybe in relationships. So look out for that. Unusual or unconventional relationships could also feature highly at this time. Meanwhile, Saturn is also aspecting Mars and a very strong Mercury, so Libra will continue to feel the pressure and the limits of Saturn's gaze at this time. And so again, it depends on where Libra falls into your chart. This can also add some caution and restraint to that Mars impulse to forge ahead. But by the end of November, we won't have that issue because Mars will be free of any malefic influences and it will no longer be combust. So it will be fully functional by the end. Now, many people will be thinking about relationships, they'll be thinking about finances, because of that connection to Taurus and Libra also being energized at this moment, right? So we can look at all things Venus that may be impacted in your life. And remember, because we're talking about an eclipse, you may not see the effects or the results till 1 month later, or even 3 months later. It can be up to 6 months, but I think by then the energy starts to wane quite a bit, because then more than likely there'll be another eclipse at that 6-month mark impacting the initial eclipse, right? So I would say look at the 1 month from the eclipse date and also the 3-month date from that eclipse. Usually that's when you see things pertaining to the eclipse coming up. Not to neglect those few days around the eclipse, because that's when the energy is most potent. So of course you would also see results then and there. Yeah, because eclipses do tend to do that. They surprise you with events and circumstances. Sort of like it usually has like an out of the blue kind of feeling to it. So now with Taurus energy getting activated, we may be thinking about our basic needs as well. Just simply like food, what we eat, how to make money, how to save money for ourselves, for our families. And because we're talking about Taurus, many people may also undergo sort of a shift in their value system, a change in their value system. And this will force them to review some of their life goals, right? Because it's the natural second house. Of course, again, this eclipse directly impacts Taurus and Scorpio. And not just Taurus and Scorpio, Lugna and Moon, but also people who have personal planets sitting in Taurus or Scorpio. Or if you have a lot of planets sitting in Taurus or Scorpio, you're going to feel the impact of this eclipse. More specifically, if you have a planet sitting in Krittika or Vishaka, close to the degree of the eclipse, and that area of your life will reach a culmination of sorts at this time. Yeah. Now, the eclipse falls into the second pada of Krittika, which is the Capricorn Navamsha, suggesting potential for growth. The maternal aspect is strong here because we're talking about the exact degree of the exaltation of the moon where the eclipse is taking place. So any activity to nourish yourself or nourish others is also very favored now. It's a good time just generally to connect with others, as we're talking about a strong Venetian element here, and we're talking about a bright, exalted moon also. Now, this is a much easier eclipse to deal with than the one we had in the summer months. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about Krittika, where the eclipse takes place. Krittika supports the following activities: starting new projects, activities requiring any kind of initiative, honesty, courage. Breaking old habits is supported by Krittika. Beginning an educational course, any sort of debating, any sort of cooking activities, and sudden change. And this will be connected to what, if there's a planet in Krittika, you look at the lordship, you look at Taurus and what it signifies for you. Yeah. And as I said, it's a good time to connect with others. We're talking about a full moon here. And it's an especially good time to tell someone that if you care about them, because of the strength of Venus and the moon at this time. Now, this is a more positive eclipse than we faced in June. That was also in Taurus on June the 10th, but it was in Mriksha. And it suggests that we are leaving the old ways behind and forging new paths. Right? It could be, for example, something that came up suddenly around that June 10th eclipse, and now we've made a decision on that matter. Either way, whether we're revisiting it, going back, or we are done with it and moving ahead. Yeah. I've made a remedies video on the planets, and for the eclipses, the best remedial measures you can take is to strengthen that moon, especially at the time of the lunar eclipses. It can be very, very simple things like just keeping a light schedule 1 week before and 1 week after an eclipse, drinking lots of water, doing pranayama and meditation, spending more time with family, spending more time at home. And it's generally advisable to go inward at the time of the eclipse, at the time of the eclipses, and I would say just like 3 or 4 days before that also, because we tend to be very restless at this time, and because we're very restless, we're tempted to take a lot of action and do a lot, but actually you should be doing the opposite. You should be doing less. Yeah. So it's and to take it, and I would say take advantage of that reflective moment, especially at this eclipse, because the moon is so strong, it's exalted. It's very dignified moon, so it will help you receive the guidance that you need to make good decisions. Yeah. So that's all for now. If you like the video, don't forget to hit the subscribe, like, and share button. Thank you, folks. All the best.